Welcome, Darklings, to Season 3 of the Reign of Blood podcast. I'm Ember, one of your hosts, here to introduce you to the shadowy depths of what hopes to be our most sinister season yet. This season, your unholy trinity of organizers and hosts, Miss Kitten, Radically Dark, and myself, have entirely way too much fun with the Summer of Stabs, our 80s horror-themed series that promises to be both educational and thrilling. Our aim is to explore the macabre beauty that lies in the shadowed, or maybe not so shadowed, spaces of desire. Leading up to Reign of Blood Nightfall, our advanced Halloween extravaganza, we'll be discussing topics such as embodied and informed consent, risk mitigation, and other helpful tips, ensuring that every prick, slice, and puncture is as thought through as it is sensational for you. We'll also continue interviewing sharps enthusiasts from around the world to find out what makes the blood-loving heart tick. And maybe we'll talk Miss K into recording some more horror meditations for us. Join us as we explore the eerie, the edgy, and the exquisitely sharp. This is Reign of Blood, where the macabre meets the magnificent, and the only limit is your imagination, risk profile, and informed consent. Let the Summer of Stabs begin. But first, a content warning. This podcast is not suited for individuals who are not legal adults, are not interested in heavier BDSM practices, who are presently having severe mental or relationship health concerns, or who do not already understand basic BDSM practices regarding consent, ethics, risk mitigation, etc. Topics may include things like mental health issues, social issues, injustice, blood and sharks, of course, medical trauma, medical issues, trauma of various types, and more. Listener discretion is heavily advised. Welcome, listeners! We're back with another episode for the Reign of Blood podcast. I have another fantastic guest with me today. You know her as Confectionersfire on FetLife. Here to chat with me about their love of all things bloody and evil today. Would you like to go ahead and introduce yourself, Sia?
Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you. So would you like to go ahead and tell folks a little bit about how you got started in things that were sharp and bloody, what drew you to it, why you love it? Because that's kind of the one thing that stuck out to me. I know that's actually how we kind of met. You had joined originally a class of mine on blood and sharps. And the one thing that had stuck out to me was your passion for the subject. So how did that passion kind of come to be?
I think that it started as a teen when you kind of were introduced into your weird kinks, right? So you're like, hey, I want you to tie me up and blindfold me. But I did that too. But then I also was like, hey, here's this really sharp steak knife. I would like for you to drag it across my skin and then proceed to like bite me or add the impact with it. And so it started with knives, honestly. And I don't know, that it just evolved from there. And I think that you get a little taste of that quick pain and the cold sensation of the knife being, drug across your skin, and it lights a fire in you, and it's just that one moment, that one core memory. It sticks with you and it evolves from there. So that's where it started.
I love the smile on your face when you're talking about that. It's something that looks like it absolutely lights up your whole face. So talk to me a little bit more about knives and how you branched out from there. So you mentioned, obviously, we all start with something
usually household items like steak knives, um, or sewing needles. In my case, sewing needles, steak knives, box cutters, which, again, for listeners, we don't recommend uh, for adult related activities. Just as the side note here. But what was kind of the next steps for you? What kind of was the hook afterwards?
No pun intended. Uh, I think that so it started with the steak knives, right? And then it kind of evolved into a relationship that I had with my boyfriend in high school. And his father was a woodworker. So he had scalpels in his garage and he had box cutters. And so it's the small things. And right, I'm sure that there's the warning that goes with this, like make sure that you clean your toys and that you're using new equipment. And as a kid, I don't think that you really think about those things until later and you're like, I can't believe I did that. But knives and then scalpels and box cutters. And then that was in my teens. And it wasn't until within the last 4 or 5 years that it evolved into more more advanced things like the staples and your needlework and hooks, and whatever like minor suspensions that I've done in the meantime. And then we add our delicious curry combs in there and a vampire paddle and a vampire flogger, that were made specifically for me, and those puncture the skin just so delicately, and enough to draw out all of your delicious blood during that time. And it just kind of opens your mind to what you what you can do afterwards. Like, there's so many other ways that you can include those items. So that's that's where it started, and it's kind of evolved into a passion for making sure that you hit the delicate skin just right to get it to release a little bit.
Love it. So you obviously have, again, a deep love for this. So what has that relationship looked like for you? What does it feel like as an experience then?
I think that for being a submissive masochist and being more of an edge player, um, for me, the relationship with the pain that goes with the release of blood, it's very intimate. It is something that, unintended, right? It's drawn out of you in a cathartic manner. And I think back to one of the first scenes that I did with Corporate Muscle, and that was where he had built a vampire flog for me specifically. And so I sat and I watched him create this flog and add zip ties to it and cut them at an angle. And so you've got to like mentally prepare to know that these are going to actually slice into you as you start impact. And for me, it really is a very emotional, cathartic experience. And it's a form of release in terms of being able to mentally get to a place where you're vulnerable enough to allow yourself to physically be ripped open. So it's very sentimental. It has a lot of meaning to me.
Can you talk to me a little bit more about that preparation process? It seems to me like that process right there, the moments leading up to a scene for you are particularly meaningful.
Yeah.
What does that, what does that, I would say for you, almost ritual, it sounds like, look
Mhm.
like? What does that experience kind of entail?
For me, I think that there is a lot of ritual that goes into that, right? And maybe that's the same for other submissives too, but I like to take a bath and I like to make sure that I'm sudsed up from head to toe and I'm shaved appropriately. So I make sure that I use a good antibacterial soap so that I know that I'm clean in that moment. And then depending on the partner, making sure that obviously all of the equipment is clean as well. And I think that the space that you perform in as well is it's important that it supports whatever scene it is that you're trying to have, that it allows you to have that intimacy. And I don't mind public scenes, right? I don't mind being on display and putting on a show, but in those more intimate settings, it's for me, I like to make sure that it's a spot where I can leave those blood splatters and be okay with it. So if it's on the floor, it's a memory of something that happened there and it's stained into the wood grains at that moment. So I think that having a clean and sterile environment is important, right? And if you're in a public space, make sure that you lay down your tarps appropriately and that you're cleaning up your mess afterwards. But the beforehand, I like those small intimate spaces where you can paint your room, literally. I enjoy seeing those specks on the wall and being like, is that blood or is that wine? Or, oh yes, I remember that is from a curry comb or that's from the vampire paddle. So uh, it's the whole thing, I think, is a ritual. But beforehand, it's just a nice clean shower to make sure that I'm ready to receive.
You bring up some really important points here. I think, including myself, because I do focus a lot on the public health aspects of Blood and Sharps play. Because again, that is one of my primary focuses as a presenter. That's usually what people are coming to me for. Uh, but often, I think I, especially within my classes, have not talked a whole lot about the intimacy aspect because it can seem rather sterile. And I've actually kind of switched and punted with some of my classes to to try to remind folks and remind, like, oh, yeah, also, while we're doing this, this is still supposed to be something that is fun or intimate or an experience and not always dry and clinical and yes, it can be that way, and yes, that can be just as much fun if it's intended, but intention matters. Creating a space, and having the power to create and just sit with that mindset that you were talking about,
Yeah.
and sit and watch, just observe, to be present. Uh, it's it's fascinating, and yes, there may be some things that carry more risk with that, um, but sometimes those things are within our risk profile, and sometimes they're not. And I think being able to be aware of that, to understand best practices and understand where certain things deviate and make the conscious choice and the informed choice, is very different from not having that information and making decisions without.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think being able to make those conscious, informed decisions enhances that intimacy there as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah. Well, and then it also creates a special bond between
Mhm.
you and I don't mind pickup play. Like, I've done minimal for it, but for me, it's very intimate, and I want to share those things with somebody that I know and I trust very well, who is going to take care of me both, physically and mentally before, during, and after, but that really understands, like, you are literally drawing the life out of me. That's in your hands. And that's something that's special and amazing.
So, do you mind telling or giving an example of perhaps a favorite memory for you, or a perhaps most fun memory related to Blood and Sharp's flight?
Mm, I think they're all my favorite, which it's a shitty
Okay,
answer.
fair, fair, fair. That's like
They
asking me to pick a
they
favorite cat.
Yeah, yeah, that's, they're all my favorite, but I think the one that I enjoyed the most was that I did a blood cupping scene, so I had never done fire cupping before, and I have a beautiful friend in the local scene who offered to do it, and at the time, we decided we would do a little bit of the fire cupping and try that, and then we decided to add the blood play to it. So we um, added X's on my left and my right side from my shoulder blades, pardon me, down to my upper butt. And we did, I think it was 8 cups in total. And it was the first time that I got to experience the coagulation of it, where you get those beautiful blood slugs. So we get done doing the fire cupping, and it's a fun experience, right? Like, everybody should try it once. And uh taking the cups off, though, and then sitting up and playing with the blood slugs and just like rubbing them all over your body, and whether or not you consume or you don't consume, I feel like everybody has licked a wound at some point that's been bloody, or a cuticle that's ripped, right? Or something, a scab that's come off, and like you lick your wound. And this was like a whole fingers in your mouth, and you are painting yourself from like your neck to your bottom. And it just was so beautiful. And the room was lit appropriately, and it was a public scene. And so what still sticks in my head is that my partner and I heard somebody go, "Well, I've seen enough." And then walked away. And I can't help but think, like, okay, I did my due diligence. I freaked somebody out enough with like my joy and this intimate moment between my partner and I. And I think I'll have to repost it, but there's a picture of like a heart that's drawn on my butt cheek, in the blood itself. And it just was a fun moment between a good friend and my partner. And being able to kind of like freak somebody out a little bit, and then the bloody t-shirt afterwards, and then the cleanup in a public space was terrible. But that I think is one of my favorite moments. And then I do have a second, but that was a branding on my chest. I was zip tied down to a chair, and I did not know what was going to happen because I was blindfolded, and I thought for sure I was going to get nails through my tits. But it was more of a mind fuck. But scalp we did a scalpel branding into my breasts, and that one's more intimate because it was a branding of my, but that is a very beautiful core memory with that more precise pain, where it just digs directly into your soul as it's happening. So, those are my two favorite.
I love that. I you may have You may have noticed I have a fond, deep fondness for scalpels and artistic
What?
cutting in particular.
No.
I know, right? I love all things or most things sharp, uh, all together. But I have a particular love for my scalpels. So I certainly relate there. There's something incredibly, intensely intimate about it. Um, they may or may not. There's more sensual than sexual for me, but again, they're very highly connective. Whereas nails, for some reason, are usually intensely sexual for me. I don't know why. Nails are just like really super fucking hot. I don't know. Um,
I've yet to do it. It's on my list of things to do.
Oh, they're just so nice. They're so nice, especially if you're pushing them through by hand. Oh, so nice.
I
So nice.
It freaks me out, but I'm like, "Please sign me up."
It's like it's so nice. It's the again. I've mentioned this with my other two co-organizers. Someone had asked, like, well, do a sensual scene. Like, I don't know, we're all like tossing around, how do we do a sensual scene? I don't know. How do we do a sensual performance? And my idea is, I don't know, I can nail someone down by the webs of their fingers and knead them out. That's sensual.
I
That's
can't.
kind of sensual.
Listen, everybody has their own idea of what sensual is. Like, I think
Um,
that maybe is part of why I appreciate and enjoy my core memory so much with the knife play is because it was like a blindfolded restraint dragging of the blade across this.
mhm,
It's like this threatening idea that it could, really penetrate you at any point in time and inevitably be the end of you. And one slip, I mean, there's jokes, right? Like one slip of the knife and I'm gonna
mhm.
cut. But the reality is that's very true. And then that could be super sexy. But I can also understand why pushing a nail through somebody would be sensual as well.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, it's like because it's the same thing with the bondage. It's like you're trapped, you're helpless.
Mhm.
It's a similar thing. It's a similar aspect. And same thing with knives. Of course, knives. Fucking someone with a knife is always never going to not be hot.
Oh
Uh,
my god. I want it so badly. So
so
badly.
it's so much fun. It's so much fun. Um, anyways, I'm going back to reality here. Ember is pulling. Can you tell it's been a while? Um,
Rein it in, rein it in.
Rain is coming back here. I'm staring at my knives on my wall over here,
Yeah.
and the needles that I have out, and I'm going, I think I need to invite some people over. Um,
I'm just ideas.
oh. Too many classes, not enough stabbing. Too many classes, not enough stabbing. So, what is it that you feel like you get out of Sharps and Blood play? What is kind of your goal or your intention in engaging in this?
Um, so I think it's the same as I maybe explained a little bit before, is that the these scenes are definitely more intimate for me. So just like with Impact, the blood and sharps and if you're doing staples or a suturing of any kind, it's a slow, painful burn that gives you a slow, cathartic release. And I think it's that dragon that all of us crazy, beautiful bottoms kind of chase. And it's that euphoric release of a buildup and then the burn that goes along with it. And most of the time, it's going to be a slow, steady burn. And it's that you're working through those. So it's catharsis.
Mm,
It's a way to release. It's a way to, you know, provide an escape for anything else, I think for that's what it is mostly.
It sounds like it's also something that provides a lot of intimacy within yourself.
Yeah.
As though it's something that also really helps you focus and connect with yourself.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and you think you prepare, right? And part of that ritual is a mindful meditation.
Mhm.
You are working on your breathing. And in those moments, for me, I would smell my partner. I would hear his breath. I would rely on the touch that goes with the whatever tool it is that you're using being applied. And so all of those moments, it's all of your senses coming together at once, and it is making it a more intimate, cathartic meditation of all of these wonderful things coming together.
Mhm. Very much so. And I love that because needles are very much that way for me. Needles are pretty much almost essentially a meditative process for me. They're pretty much solely meditative for me altogether. That or solely sadistic, one or the other. They can go either way. But it's either the repetition, the repetitive process of either the repetitive pain and the slight difference, or the repetitive process of inserting with the slight differences of pressure of each location with the skin, one way or the other, or the repetitive process of measuring, or both, because I also self stab either way. Uh, but yeah, no, I very much identify with that aspect. The capacity that it has like none other to clear and focus my mind
Yeah.
in on focusing on what's important, focusing on what my mind and my body need,
Yeah.
and to feel free in
Yeah.
a way.
And I think that as a bottom, like we feed off of that energy too, right? So when you are dedicated and you're in that space where you're honed in and you are measuring precisely and you're very thoughtful and diligent about where needles are being placed or where a staple is being placed, there's something that kind of it's that beautiful energy exchange of,
Mhm.
and also it's predictable for a
Mhm.
bot predictable, right? So like I know that there's going to be a symmetry between my left side and my right side, right? But when but then there's also that aspect of it where it's chaotic and you don't know where it's coming from and don't know what's going to be applied. And um I think that for me, that's why I enjoy the floggers, the vampire flogger, or the vampire paddle, or even the curry comb. It's that light sting and it can be repetitive, but it's chaotic in a sense that it's never going to be the same pressure or the same severity or the same cut or the same depth in one particular spot.
Mhm.
Um, and there's something magical that happens with that too, right? Because there's that adrenaline spike and then the crash and then the spike and then the crash. And then if you've got somebody super sadistic, you don't know when it's coming or where it's coming from or if it's going to be the same tool that's used or not, or you're going to layer needles on top of other needles and then have to deal with it.
Or if they're gonna pour hand sanitizer over it, or
Yeah, or the spray bottle full of rubbing alcohol just to
yeah.
spice it up, 'cause as if your blood didn't, lube it up enough, you're gonna I need to
Or like Saded says, like Saded says, you have to always punch it to prevent sepsis. Absolutely. Everyone knows that you
but
just have to punch it in order to
noted. I didn't know that, but I can understand why. Very important in the process.
Oh yeah, totally. Absolutely important. 100%.
It's there's hard evidence in that. Uh,
Oh. No, and there are so many ways of expressing oneself and of having that kind of energy exchange
yeah,
within things. Grounding. I think for me, that's one thing that needles in particular give is that kind of give and take. Um, Usually, I love having at least one point of contact. Usually, have my needle bottoms hold my leg or something with one hand, at least in sync breath while we're doing needles with me. To go at least have that same circular sensation between the two of us. It's very again that meditative. Whereas again, whereas sharps and blood impact very different. You can create such versatile experiences for
yeah.
versatile forms of catharsis.
Yeah. And it's funny that you say that, like where you have them hold hands, and that's, I think, something that's very intimate to me in those moments too, is even if it is impact, like with the vampire flogger, uh, there's never a moment where either my hand or my foot or like a toe is just touching you ever so delicately, so that there's some form of physical connection outside of what you're sliding into my skin. But a pant leg to hold on to, or a waistband or something of that sort. And you're right, it stabilizes you. It brings peace, I think, to both of you in that moment. It's very beautiful.
Can you speak a little bit more about your process, not just with sharps, but in general about pain processing skills, what you use to manage and work through pain as you're going through as a masochist?
I talk with my hands a lot in those moments. So, um, I will like pump my hands, open and closed, or then I'll focus mainly on my breathing. So I will try and do a mindfulness meditation, um, where it's usually 3 seconds in, I'll hold for a second, and then I'll release for 3 seconds. That kind of slows my breath down, and then I can pay attention. And I start from a head to toe process. So, like, I slowly release any muscle tension that might be causing me to seize up or not be fully present. And enjoy those moments instead of putting myself in a chaotic state. So, deep breaths, the hand movement really helps me. If you've seen a video of me or some pictures, often my hands are like, they look like jazz hands, because I'm literally talking with my fingers as things are happening. And sometimes I'll get dancy feet. So, that's usually how I'll process through, but mostly deep breaths and mostly a head to toe release, and trying to find where the tension is coming from and breathing into that pain, um, feeling where it's coming from, and just really leaning into how much it hurts. But as an edge player and as a masochist, like that's beautiful. That's what I want. I want to feel that pain. I want to enjoy it for every second that it's happening. Um, and then because it's gone, it's fleeting. So what
That's
what
beautiful. That's beautiful. Thank you. And you are much nicer than I am because my primary go to is cursing. Um, I scream like none other. I am a screamer and I am a cusser. I cuss like none other. It's you, MF and SOB. I am gone. I threaten up and down. And Soren just sits there and he laughs and laughs and laughs. Um, and then I do the kicky dancy feet, and just I scream and cuss out.
Yeah. The joke that I'm a delicate little flower. I don't, it's very rare that I'll curse my partner. I, maybe it's a respect thing. Like, I don't know. I don't want any like additional pain to come from it. But I'll subject myself. I'm a willing sufferer if you deserve my suffering. So I will enjoy those moments and I will dig in deep for them. I mean, there's a lot of guttural responses in those moments of the deep moans and groans. But very rarely will I curse at somebody. Like it's got to be a big surprise. Fuck you. Like I think I said fuck you once, and it was actually with a flogging, and I changed it to fuck off, and it was I would not recommend that.
See, I'm gonna get it no matter what, so I may as well go ahead
Uh,
and yeah.
yeah,
Oh well.
we're very different. We're very different.
You know, and that makes it great. I think it's in it, but it is that aggressive catharsis. I'm also a very aggressive bottom. I'm a very, very aggressive bottom. And it's another reason I don't really bottom for a whole lot of people because they're just there's a whole ass handbook to topping for me. Right. Because there are aspects now I can demo bottom for a lot of people for like new tops. That's fine. Like I can keep in a reasonable headspace and manage that. But I am very much a prime bottom.
Yeah.
And I have, if I get in the right headspace, I have very, again, you have to know what you're getting into and you have to consent to certain things like me screaming and cussing at you and getting really fucking feral because it's what you're gonna get. You're not gonna get anything that's really nice and polite, unfortunately.
do I do think I mean it's very mood dependent, right? And it's very specific. So like I can identify with that primalness in it because I think blood in general or sharps does bring that out in people. Like it's those guttural groans and it's like for me it's like a writhing of the body. So that primal nature does tend to come out when you have those scenes. So I understand that part of it. I don't think that I'm very aggressive though, but I can be. It's usually ends up being like a head nudge or something, or like maybe I'll bite back or nibble back like gently, just gently, not anything like I'm gonna rip off your skin unless it gets there. But
Though I misspoke. I can be really nice for needling for bottoming for needles. I can be really nice and giggly bottoming for needles. But impact and blood impact, and I can do pretty good so long as my partner's not around. But if my partner is around, I'm a goner. It's not great.
is it a show then at that point? Or
I think it's just it's a trigger. It's a headspace trigger, and it's just a mate's here. Boom.
it's on sound like Donkey Kong.
Yeah, then it's just gone, and yeah, yeah. But he can manage me pretty well. I mean, after God, 8 years together, and we've known each other since we were kids. He can manage my insanity pretty well.
Good. That's what you need. I feel like that's important. The healthy balance.
Exactly. It's a healthy balance. Even if he says I do have a really nasty right hook. Um,
And you love each other. That's how you find out.
exactly. Apparently, I'm a nicer top than I am bottom.
Mm. Noted.
Mm. Oh, anyways, enough about my random shit. Thank you so much for chatting with me today. I have thoroughly enjoyed this. Uh, and it sounds like you've got a lot of kind of goals coming up. So, what are some of your future goals for your Sharps journey?
Oh man. I think I have a lot on my depravity list is what I like to call it. I
Yeah.
really want to do some skewers through my tits at some point in time. I would like more staples. Really want to do a full body needle corset, like on the backside from my neck all the way down to my ankles, if possible. Like a very, I have this vision of like a mermaid kind of silhouette. Um, and I don't know. I mean, more knives, more knives. Oh, I do have one scene in particular that I have been fantasizing about, but it involves a noose and uh a not a scalpel, a straight razor. Uh and that that's my the top of my fantasy bucket right now is a is a noose and a straight razor, but I I need to find the right partner for that one.
I love it.
But
Yeah,
lots of things. There's lots of things that still need to be explored, and I'm excited.
I love that. Is there anything else you would like to tell listeners out there?
Um, I don't know. I'm definitely am someone who wants to support people exploring things that they're interested in. So find partners who are going to encourage you to try the things that you want to try. And if needles are something that you want to get into, then try one or two and see if you like it. Don't be afraid, and honestly, maybe try it 2 or 3 times just to make sure that you don't actually like it, because I feel like the first time it's all about nerves, right? And the second time it's maybe a little chaotic and you've got the right partner and you don't really know if you like it. And the third time is just really to confirm whether or not you do have interest in it. So give it a couple tries, find a safe person, and don't be afraid of the pain. I feel like that's very subjective in terms of who your top is going to be, because it can be gentle and beautiful and easy. And I say that, precautionary, right? Easy is different for everybody. And it also depends on where it's being done on your body. But don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. Enjoy it. And if you're funny, it can be, you know, entertaining to watch staples get ripped out of you from a Christmas ribbon. Like it can be fun and entertaining. It doesn't have to be serious too. So and have fun with it.
Thank you so much. We appreciate all of your support, listeners, and we'll be looking forward to your attendance with our upcoming Summer of Stabs classes. We have Sensational Sharps coming up this weekend. Then we have Face Needles with that Pain Cup. And then I believe we also have several needle bondage and sharps bondage classes. So predicaments and bondage with sharps. So those are going to be fun as well. And also be sure to take a look at, of course, everything that's on the Patreon. We also have, of course, all of our guided meditations and guided meditations for masochists and getting ready for sharps scenes up and available there and on the podcast as well. So
Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.